Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and my guest today, Dane Espegard. I had struggled with that a little bit. Espegard is more, and I should talk, I've got a name that nobody can pronounce, is more than a successful entrepreneur. He's a dream architect. And as a division manager at Vector Marketing for nearly 2 decades, he has mastered the art of building high-performing teams and cultivating a culture where achieving personal dreams, this is important, personal dreams is at the core. Now, Dane is the author of the #1 bestseller, The Dream Machine, and it's a guide to creating teams that achieve extraordinary outcomes by focusing on employee engagement through their personal goals. They're not waiting around to be told what to do. They have goals as well. The book's core premise is deceptively simple, but it's very impactful. When leaders invest genuine time and energy into understanding and supporting their team members and their individual dreams, their organizational performance dramatically improves. And I think that happens no matter if you're in an organization, it happens in families too. And Dane provides a comprehensive framework for creating a workplace culture that doesn't just demand productivity, but it actively nurtures individual potential. So get ready, take notes, get ready to learn from a leader who's not only passionate about business growth, but also dedicated to helping others unlock their full potential and live a life filled with purpose and passion. Dane, good morning. Thank you for sending me your book, The Dream Machine. It's in front of me as we speak. And before we get started, can you tell our audience a bit about yourself and, for instance, front row dads and how you like to show up in the world?
You bet. Good morning to you as well. I always say I'm a husband and a father first. I am in a group called Front Row Dads. I've got 3 wonderful little ladies, an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. And we reside just outside Austin, Texas. And there's never a dull moment here at home. We've got horses and dogs and cats and obviously all the kiddos and stuff as well. But how do I show up in the world? I like to show up in the world playful. Some of my core values are freedom, fun, and competition. I enjoy just having healthy competition at everything I can, and like having fun experiences and creating memories. And I think that's probably what led into a lot of the dream stuff.
I was so excited to get my hands on your book when you sent it to me. It landed on the doorstep and I opened it and I went, I always go and I look at what's it all about? What are the chapters about? And I'm passionate about the power of dreaming and using my imagination. And it was tough to, decide at first where to dive in because I always kind of scan the book and then I go back and I read it cover to cover about a week before we're going to go live. If I recall correctly, I actually started with the last chapter, chapter 9. I did. I was reading and go, ooh, the unexpected benefits of dream planning. And then I worked my way back to the beginning. So I've actually read it a couple of times.
I love hearing that.
Listen, I am an author's podcaster. Don't tell me to watch a TV or a video. You give me a book, I'm all happy. And I read I have hundreds of books in this room. Every single book in here, without exception, was gifted by people like you. I've read them, but I have a special bookcase that's right next to my desk where the ones that I know I'm going to dig into a lot and regularly land. And as soon as we're through today, I'm going to put it back in its spot over there there's a little open spot where it was yesterday. It's a great book.
Love hearing that. Thank you so much. And kudos to you. I think that's so, and I told you that before as well. I think it's so great that you actually do read, all the guests that come on, because that's it's not common in the podcast space. So I think that's definitely something that separates you.
Tell me that, and I find that just heartbreaking. If you went to the trouble to write the book, mail me the book, I'm reading the book. That's all there is to it. I am honor bound to read that book. And honestly, I have so many of them that are my favorites. And I have to kind of shuffle them around every once in a while because, oh, I got another one. I spend a
Hmm.
lot of time digging in my bookshelves. But let's talk about you. I mean, you've got a fascinating story. And I think you either told me or I read somewhere that you say hope for the future empowers the present. That's
Yes, that's one of my favorite quotes,
okay.
and I don't know where I heard it to begin with, but it's always resonated with me, and I think that's really why dreaming works so much. That when there's hope in the future, there's power in the present.
Listen, I'm a big believer in dreaming. And I even lucid dream. I never stop dreaming. And imagination. It's impossible in my mind to look at something, anything, the car that just went down the road, the house across the street. Everything started in imagination. And then I think went to dreaming and then it went to creating. Or maybe I've got it backwards, but that's how I observe the world.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think any great thing that we use today was a far-fetched idea from somebody at some point in time, and yeah, I think it's easy to look at the world that way, or maybe not easy, but I think that makes sense to some people. But I think it's also common that we can believe that, but at the exact same time, not actually do it in practice for our own lives, right? To say, well, what else is possible, or what else is capable?
Right. I think we stymie ourselves by not taking that extra step and saying, well, somebody did this. Why can't I do something similar? What's
Mhm.
holding me back? Can you share the story of how you first discovered the power of dreaming? And it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's an integral part of your family life as well.
Yeah, it was. So I heard a speaker by the name of Matthew Kelly. He's a great author, and the company Cutco Knives brought him in for our annual national event, and he took us through a dreams exercise, and that was my first time going through anything like that. And it was invigorating. I got a lot of energy from it. I loved sitting there thinking about, kind of all the what ifs. And he did a great job of kind of putting us in the place to be able to really capitalize on the session. And then took that home and introduced my team to it. And I mean, the workplace was just a buzz with all the conversation about it, the lightness with it, the individual, kind of being able to pour into other people's dreams and engage on that. And it was a ton of fun. And then, what happens to a lot of things is that we revert back to our normal mode. And so it lit our workplace afire for, we'll call it, a month or 2 months, and then it kind of subsided and we went right back to doing the things that we were doing before. And that was in 2007. And then it would be occasional that I would get it out maybe every couple of years, and look at it and say, oh yeah, I remember that list. And then I had the opportunity to move again with work and start a brand new work team. I did that a few times in my career, and this was back in end of 2012. And I was moving to new territory, starting a team from scratch, and I'd done it twice before. So I was really intentional with, hey, if this was going to be the last work team that I ever created, what would I want the culture to be? And not just for others, but for me to be engaged and excited to be there for the next 10 to 20 years. And that's when I went back through like you, I had a ton of books and went through all the books that I read, and fell back on The Dream Manager, which is the book that Matthew Kelly wrote, and said, this is it. I remember thinking about this back then. How can I make this a part of my team? And so that's when I decided, hey, moving forward, we're going to be the team that's all about dreams. And we rebranded the team that I was going to, and it was North Star Dream Team. And I knew just from leadership in general that if I wanted something to really take hold of my organization, I had to live it as the leader. And so I started doing all the dreams exercises with my then girlfriend, who's now my wife, and just lived dreams out loud in front of my team. And that's evolved now, obviously in the workplace, but also at home, to where we do annual planning. my wife and I, and it's centered around dreams. We do this with our girls. We've got some upcoming trips. That next week we're headed on a dream trip to go to the World Equestrian Center because that's on my wife's list, and so it's really taken a hold of everything that both my workplace and my home life as well.
What challenges you have faced in maintaining a dream focused culture? I mean, and you mentioned that, you kind of just, look at it every once in a while, but you hadn't made it a clear focus. Do you still have trouble with that, or are you and your team just all in?
I think there's still, I think I would love to say, no, it's every day we're waking up to our dreams list. But no, the reality is, life distracts us all the time from the things that we want and the things that we know are important. And problems arise and things steal our attention. At this point, though, we've been working with this strategy, this culture within our organization since 2013. So it is very embedded in what we do. The thing that probably made the biggest difference over the last couple of years was, in the past, I would have access to everybody on my team's dreams list. And the way that happened is they would all have it on Google Docs, and I'd have to pull it up. And for me, it would be I'd have reminders for every, we'll call it monthly meeting that we had, or quarterly. There would be a spot in there that I would spotlight people on our team for dreaming. Well, that gets a little chaotic as there's more and more Google Sheets, and I have to plug in to do all those things. And so I found a partner, and he helped develop somebody who's far more techie than I am, and he developed what we now have is called the Dreams Vault. And it's essentially some software that allows everybody on our team to plug in their dreams, and so they can set goals, and they can put dedicated timelines in there or target dates, and they can archive dreams. And then on my side, I get little reminders all the time. So if somebody accomplishes a dream, I get an email that says, Alex on your team just accomplished a dream. If every Monday I get emails from the software that say, these are all the people on your team that have some sort of a dream task coming up within the next week. And so that allows me to spend 60 seconds on that day just sending out some text messages of encouragement or support or just recognition for those people. So now it's kind of, we'll say, baked into the cake in terms of having reminders and stuff that allow us to keep moving with that.
I was going to, ask if you had an app, but it sounds like you have something that's at least app adjacent.
Yeah, that was, and I knew, like, when the book was released back in 2021, I didn't have the software, I didn't have an app, and so at that point, the book, I don't hold back anything in the book. The idea behind the book is that anybody can take that book, read it, and implement everything from day one. They don't need to hire us for anything. They can just do it on their own. And naturally, from the book, there's people that would call and say, hey, would you come and facilitate a dreams workshop, and would you do and I love doing those. But I also knew that workshop itself, to get people dreaming, is kind of like a steroid shot in the arm, just like I experienced when I heard Matthew Kelly take me through it, that at some point, it's going to wear off, just like any other motivational thing or exercise that you go through. And so I really needed that back end structure to help teams implement. And it took a while. We didn't have even a beta version. I launched the book in September of 21. We didn't have the beta version of the site until December really of 23. And so this last year, 24, was the first year that we had kind of teams testing and working through the bugs. And it's at a spot now that we love it. And we don't have an actual phone app yet, but that'd be coming in the future. We wanted to start with the web-based version since it's more enterprise-based to start.
And something you just said really had me smacking my forehead. When I first read the book, because I've had it for a while, and I read the book and I was walking around going, I love this, but as you said, things get in the way. And then when I read it again, I smacked myself all over again. It's like, Denise, really? You know better. You know these things. Why are you letting it slide off into that dark corner over there? You know better. And I had a really solid talk with myself. It was ugly in some spots. I was like, stop doing this. But I realized that in so many ways, I was not just failing myself, but I was giving myself permission to fail. And that hurt.
Mhm. Yeah, and
So,
it's one of the things when it comes to the dreaming stuff, that how do you balance the excitement and the, oh, I've got to participate with this, but then also still give yourself grace to say, dreaming shouldn't ever have a negative connotation to it. It should never have this feel of obligation. It should be this exciting, encouraging thing. And I think that's a line that is important for a family, a person, a business team to at least be aware of, to say, hey, we want to make sure that dreaming is always something that's very inviting and exciting for people to participate in. But at the same time, we've got to give ourselves grace and not be critical if we, fall back into old patterns or forget that we were pursuing something, because these are all meant to move us and keep us in a state of excitement and pursuit.
and when I was having this, come to Jesus talk with myself, I started digging. So where is this coming from? Why am I so upset? And I was. And at some point I realized that when I was a kid, I would hear, and a lot of kids hear this. I'm not alone. Oh, you're just a dreamer. Oh, great. That's not helpful. That's, actually not good. And I started digging and went, how many people told me when I had a great idea, or I thought it was a great idea, or I was very excited about, oh, that's nice, but you're just dreaming. It's just a dreamer. Don't do that to people. I'm telling you right now, if you catch yourself saying that to anybody, child or adult, stop it.
I couldn't agree more with you, Denise. I think, words matter. They matter more than what we understand in the moment. And it is so normal for that to look at be looked at as a negative, right? Of, oh, you're just a dreamer. And it's, well, yeah, that's step one of anything great happening, is that somebody has to dream. And sure, it can be, if somebody has a reputation of constantly saying big things and never acting on something, that could be a little, disenfranchising for somebody to be in a relationship with somebody who does that. But that's not, I don't assume that was what happened with you. And that's not what typically happens 95% of the time. It's, in my experience, it's somebody who's putting their own limitations and kind of what they've settled for is going to be their life onto other people, to say, oh, you're just a dreamer. It's like, yeah, that should be a compliment. When somebody says you're a dreamer, it's like, heck yeah, I'm a dreamer. That's I hope my kids get that from me.
Exactly. And, when I had this talk, it was a big talk. I'm not sure I didn't cry all over the kitchen. I'm not a crier, but I remember thinking, okay, that smarted. That hurt. And I'd sit back down and do some, deep diving. I don't remember a lot of my childhood. I just don't. So I had to really dig into it and realize that that had happened to me multiple times. And I took it to heart because, adults will say
Mhm.
something and they're in charge. They're the big ones in the room. Turns out not always. But, when you
Mhm.
grow up, if you grow up, you have to determine how important your dreams are and how you're going to, take, I don't know, take a hold of them and make them work. And,
Mhm.
we all get busy. We're all, oh, I'll think about that later. Think about it now. Look, I was in the kitchen earlier and I was, getting ready to get on here. I had the book in my hand again. And I was like, I can't wait to have this conversation because this is such an important topic. And I wanted to ask you, when you first started, or even now with your team, do you often or every once in a while have that one holdoff that says, I'm not going to do it? This is just not my thing.
Yes, the answer is yes, and it's less with my team. And I think my team is a little bit of a unique situation, called a unicorn, and partly because I've been doing this with my team for a decade. So when somebody starts, they're just plugged in right into the culture of that. And a lot of people are attracted to that to begin with because we advertise that when we're doing the hiring. The other part of it that I think is unique is that, in the Cutco space, and I run different teams. I have a few different companies, but in the Cutco space to begin with, average age of somebody who's joining the team is 18 to 22. And so I think it is also, they are closer to the time where dreaming was encouraged, rather than average age of 30 to 40, where now they've already gone through the timeline of people telling them be realistic, and life hits them in the face so many times. So I think that my team may be a little bit different than the norm. My experience going into other companies and facilitating this is absolutely, it's not, I wouldn't even say it's one, I'd say it's a percentage on every team that is really uncomfortable with the concept of dreaming. And it's, to me, it makes sense because, again, as we mentioned, there are certain people that are conditioned their whole lives to live small, and it's not their fault. They're told over and over again, and hey, this is the way that life is, and we've got to just put our head down and get to work, and we have to make sure that we're serving all the people around us, and so what happens to a lot of people is they fill their time with obligations, and I talk often about wearing the different hats, right? So I'm a husband, I wear a dad hat, or excuse me, a husband hat, I wear a dad hat, I wear a business owner hat for a couple different businesses. And it's very hard for people to make the time for just themselves. And so they end up pouring into everybody else, and most of their calendar is filled with obligatory things that they just have to do. And so even the idea of, hey, where do you want to travel? Hey, what are some cool experiences that you want to have? What are some, I mean, that just, they don't even have time to think about it. It's not even an option at this stage of their life. And so what I have found is that dreaming, the whole concept of dreaming, let alone working towards the dream, just the first act is like a muscle. And there's a lot of people that have not exercised this muscle for 10, 15, 20, sometimes longer years, where this has just been left to kind of die. And so for them, you bring up the idea of dreaming, it's very foreign. What I have noticed is they might move a little bit slower, but if in a business team, it is set up as, hey, we're doing this. This is, participation is voluntary. I'm not going to force you to dream. That's typically a good feel for somebody to be in the room. They can see it happening. They can be inspired by some of their teammates, and they'll typically get around to putting some down. It might only be 10 to 20 things on their dreams list. It might be small, but that's absolutely better than nothing at all. And what I have found is that when they move towards those even smaller ones, that then breeds confidence of, well, if I could do that, maybe I could, maybe I could bite off a little bit more and have a little bit bigger goal or a little bit bigger dream. And so I think it's a process, and I think some people are just starting a little bit further behind based on, how life has played out for them up to this point.
It's something really important, and that's about living small. And I was having a conversation with a very dear friend of mine, and I'm an introvert. I'm a card carrying, highly committed introvert. I'm not shy and I don't have any filters, but I really do need to be left alone about 80% of the time or more. I'm just happier when I'm off all by myself. I'm thinking, I'm in my own dreams, I'm in my own head, I'm creating. It's just where I need to be. And she said, "Do you ever feel like you're living small?" And I said, "Yeah, every once in a while, because I mean, honestly, if I want groceries, they come to the door. I just don't get
Mm-hmm.
out as much as I could or should. When I do, I enjoy it. But honestly, I bought my house online. I bought my car online. Thank God for the internet. But
Oh, I love
I'm
it.
serious. I bought my house between Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. I was 80 miles away. And thank goodness I trusted my real estate agent, because it listed that day. I bought it that day. And I love this
Mm.
house. But the thing is, living small, I think, is a choice that we make. And without dreaming and imagination, and I know I can hear some people say, dreaming, that sounds just too woo woo. It's really not. You have to have those dreams. If you're going to have goals, they have to start somewhere, right? They
Yeah,
don't just
a
pop
hundred
up out
percent.
of nowhere. You just don't write it down on a piece of paper. This is my goal. Well, where did it come
Yeah.
from?
And I also think so much of this is not about like people get hung up in the achievement of it. Well, I don't know if I could do, fill in the blank. Well, who cares? It's not even about that. Yes, we talk about these objectives, and I want to travel here, I want to reach this financial goal or this relationship goal, but it's all about just the journey along. What I want ultimately is I want to wake up excited and I want to go to bed fulfilled. And what I find is that when I'm in pursuit of
Dang.
things,
Say that
yeah,
again. We need to say it again. That's important.
you, I want to wake up excited and I want to go to bed fulfilled. And I find that if I'm in pursuit of things, and I say things, I don't actually mean like material things. I mean stuff on my dreams list. If I am in pursuit, well, I've got purpose to my day, and I'm not relying on a boss at work. I'm not relying on a societal thing. It's all for internal. So I control that. I have control over my day to say I'm excited to wake up today because I got things I'm doing. I'm excited to go to the gym today because I've got moves that I'm making with my health. I'm excited today when we're done with this podcast. I'm driving our new Class A motorhome to go get the internet installed on it later today. I'm excited about that because we have an RV trip coming up. And so if I'm doing these things that are moving me forward, it's like each day there's like these mini accomplishments and these feelings of success that aren't the end all be all, but it's that I'm doing things, I'm productive, I'm not wasting my time. And in the book, I talk about this as well. I heard this quote at a Tony Robbins conference. I'm sure he's not the one that coined it, but progress is happiness. And I feel this all the time that if I'm making progress just in anything, my health, my relationship, my faith, my finances, I'm going to be excited. And it's not about the end destination. It's about I'm seeing little bits of growth. And that I think matters the most.
I always take notes when I'm talking with people like you. And I wrote down excited equals gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's something we all, even internally, say, oh, I'm really grateful for. I do a lot. And I learned it from a guest of mine, 10 years or more. And he came on the show and he literally cured his cancer. I mean, he had medical intervention, he had, surgical intervention, but he was told he basically needed to get his affairs in order. And when he came on my show, he was 5 years clear. And he did it with what he called massive amounts of gratitude. And I had
Mm-hmm.
to stop and think and say, do I do that? Well, no, I didn't. I was always busy, always doing something, always
Mm-hmm.
in my head. I wasn't paying attention. Now, and you're going to think I'm a lunatic, but every time I take a sip of water or out of the hose, I still drink out of the hose. Who
Oh, I love
doesn't?
that.
All kids do. And
Mm-hmm.
well, unless their moms catch them at it. But, I love water and I will constantly, and it's just a knee-jerk reaction. That's part of my DNA. I will say thank you to my water. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very grateful for water. I don't know how people survive without it, but just small things like that. And once you start, you're excited to drink that water. You're excited to, get outside. I went out this morning looking to see if my pecan trees are budding because in the deep south, you don't plant a thing until those things start to leaf out. Oh, you're going to have another freeze. It's guaranteed.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I promise you, the minute I see that first little furrow on those pecan branches, I'm ooh, 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 and I start, heading for the garage. But things like that, they're exciting. And I'm dreaming now. We just had a big snow here. I'm dreaming now about spring. I know exactly what's going to happen out there and what I'm going to be doing.
Mm.
Yeah. It seems small, but I have to think about it. I have to dream about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the gratitude is so. It sounds like I don't know who your guest was, but it sounds like my buddy Hal Elrod, the Miracle Morning guy.
It
Um,
wasn't
but
him,
he
but I'll have to go look it
okay.
up. This was many years ago. I've never forgotten this man, but I don't recall his name. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But the lesson, I mean, hey, I think if the lesson stuck, that's more important than the name itself when it comes to that. But I agree when it comes to the gratitude stuff. It's to be grateful, easier to be grateful when we are moving towards things that we're excited about, because again, we're in control, or maybe it's the illusion of control anyways, but I'm choosing what I'm pursuing in those things. And then gratitude, I think, is the same thing. And you're explaining this. It's the same thing as dreaming in the form of it's a muscle, right? When you do it all the time, it becomes natural to you to, be grateful that you're drinking out of the hose, or grateful for the pecan tree outside, or grateful for a relationship or a conversation. It's when people have exercised gratitude regularly, it just happens naturally. Same with dreaming.
It does. And I had to teach myself that. I didn't realize, and I had to stop and think, well, I'm not ungrateful, but I'm just not acknowledging it. And when I
Mm-hmm.
started acknowledging it, and listen, when I go to sleep at night, I don't sleep a whole lot. I never have. I sleep in fits and starts. And I may sleep for 2 or 3 hours and I'm up, and I've been known to get up at 3:18 and make a gumbo. No joke. Or vacuum. I live alone. It's a good thing because I am up and down like a, jack in the box. But here's the thing, once I started, when I'm ready to go to sleep, and this is a trick that I had to teach myself when I was very, very young. When I'm ready to actually fall asleep, it may be 1 in the morning. I sleep when I'm going to sleep. And I will literally look up at my ceiling fan and I say my prayers out loud. And I will also speak to my subconscious out loud. Maybe I have something that I just couldn't figure out. Maybe it's a piece of code that's driving me crazy. I'm a web
Mhm.
developer. And I will say, okay, this is what I need for you to pull out of all of that wisdom that's buried deep,
Mhm.
deep, deep inside of me. And I'm telling you, Dane, 318, it pops up. I write it down. 318 every single morning.
So interesting.
It works. And I've done it. People say, well, how'd you learn to do that? I don't know. I've done it all my life. Instinct, perhaps.
Yeah,
But
instinct, and you're probably listening to your body.
oh, yeah, 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 yeah. But that goes back to the gratitude thing because until I met this man on my podcast, I wasn't expressing
Mhm.
gratitude and maybe a little bit in my prayers, but asking my subconscious, what am I grateful for today? What happened that I may have already forgotten that was so important that I managed to overlook it? You'd be surprised if you could read my journal that sits by my bed. It's shocking. I'm like, how in the world did I forget about that? We get too busy.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, in your experience, how does a dream driven culture impact employee retention and satisfaction? Because that's important.
I think I think there are impacts from the dream focused engagement between myself and team members, or a team leader and team members, that creates the retention. And so what I think it does, and I've seen this firsthand, is that it puts the spotlight on the individual, and it's what can we as a business and a team do for you, as opposed to what can you do for us. And I was taught this early on in leadership, of people care about one radio station, WIIFT, what's in it for them. And so as a leader, trying to constantly speak to that of, hey, what's in it for this person? Why should they care about this? And what I find is that when I'm working with somebody on their dreams list, right, instead of the normal conversation about, whatever their role is, or did you hit the metrics that you're supposed to, or let's go over a performance review, or did you hit your sales target, any of that stuff, those conversations can become really robotic, very monotonous. And if a conversation doesn't go the way somebody wants it to, they can start to hear things in a light of, these people don't value me. This team doesn't value me, right? All I am is a cog in the wheel. And when there's a regular conversation going on, and I say regular, it's not daily, but it is enough that people understand that, hey, we care here on this team about you living a life of your dreams. And we say that all the time. And this is what I encourage companies that start to integrate the dreams culture is, hey, we all want to live the life of our dreams. And our business, one of the greatest things our business can do is enable you to be able to live the life of your dreams. And so we talk about how we obviously want to serve our clients and our customers. And we want them to be really at the forefront. But more important are the quality of the lives of the people on the team. And if we believe that if we are treating them well, if we're helping them level up, it's natural that they're going to treat the customers at a 5 out of 5, right? Or 10 out of 10. And so I love having access to people's dreams and being able to engage and say, hey, Grayson on my team, I know that this coming in next couple of months, you've got this dream on your list. How's that going? Are you, making moves towards that? Have you booked the trip? Have you done this? And then after we go through that, it's like, all right, hey, let's talk about work. But a lot of times what happens is we're able to talk about their dream first, and then how work is supporting them to do that. Whether that means you're going to be out of the office for the next week or 2 weeks or whatever. So what do we need to get done now in order for that to be such a success for you? Or, hey, I want to achieve this health dream. Great. Let's talk about, how we can maybe even shift some work stuff around schedule wise to make sure that you hit that. Because I know from personal experience that if I'm on fire about life, I naturally bring that energy to work. So if that happens for me, I'm just going to believe that happens for people on my team. So if I can help my people be lit up about the life that they're living, that person is going to be magnetic in whatever role they're doing. They're going to be productive. They're going to buy into whatever we're trying to accomplish as a team because as a team, we're bought into them. And so I think with the best talent, the A players, they know they can go get paid anywhere, right? They know I can go make money over here. I can go make money over here. But what retains them in the role is that they see themselves leveling up life on a year-to-year basis because they're accomplishing more. And I don't have a stat for this, but I can tell you firsthand examples of the people that do this within different teams. The first year they're focused on their dreams, maybe they accomplish 3 or 4 dreams on their list. And inevitably, the next year it's 5, 6, or 7, and then it's 10 plus, and then it's 15. And the reason is because they get better at flexing that muscle. They also start to dream more. So their first list might only have 50 things on it. So they'll accomplish 3 or 4 that year. And now all of a sudden they have 100 on their list or 200. I have somebody on my team that has 1,600 dreams on their list. And that person accomplished over 100 last year. But there are a lot of smaller things.
Right,
And
right.
so if
That makes
if
sense.
they're gauging their success, like, hey, how was my year last year? Work is just a part of it. It's look at this life I'm living. And they attach that to the workplace because we're constantly talking about it. And that's kind of the accountability, the cheerleading, the everything that kind of goes into that to retain those people.
When did you first start doing this? I mean, I think you referenced a few years, 2007,
Oh,
2000. When did you really get serious about this and understand the impact that you were having, not just on you and your family, but those that you work with?
I think there was iterations of it. 2013 was the first year that I went in saying, okay, this is going to be it. We're rebranding the whole team this, and we're going in with both feet. But I also didn't know what I was doing. I basically was just like, I'm going to help my team brainstorm dreams. And then I'm going to be very vocal every time I accomplish a dream on my list in front of my team. And that'll provide some accountability. And that worked. And then as we did that for, a couple of years, 3 years or so, right around 2016, 17, I started kind of diving even more to it to say, hey, what we've got some legs with this, but what would really take it to the next level? So then we started actually doing organized planning around dreams. So we'd have these not just dream storming sessions, but we'd help people plan. And then I would say the next iteration was around 2020 with COVID, where I really leaned into it because, that was such a, you know, interesting time in the workplace. And I saw this as an opportunity to really get our people through COVID with strong mental health. Because when they were sitting at home, not seemingly able to do anything, the people on our team were diving into their dreams list and saying, well, what things on my dreams list that I not have the time or space to do that now I can start doing? And so I really think we reached kind of the wind at our back, if you will, in 2020. And then me launching the book helped. And then the software this last year made a difference. So it has continued to evolve and grow. And now my senior leadership on my team, they've been doing this for, we'll call it 5, 6 years. The current, leadership that I have. And so they embody this as much as anybody. So now it's kind of on autopilot, if you will, with all the stuff that we've built in.
I have so many questions. I'm trying to sort them all out in my head. When you first started this and you said it was, back a ways, and COVID, I mean, I don't even know where to start with COVID,
Mhm.
but there are some terrific things that came out of it, notwithstanding, because people had to pivot. I hate that word. It's a COVID word to me, but they did
Mhm.
have to, pivot and look around and see what was working for them, what was working for their team, what was working for their families, what the heck wasn't working. And I think a lot of people either, came into their own at that time, kicking and screaming maybe, but came into their own. And now we've got things like, the dream machine. Oh, and I wanted to ask you too, you've got a journal that goes with this book. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the journal was that's what we, as we launched the book, we had a supporting journal. We still have it, but it's called just the Dreams Journal, and it basically is the nine different categories that we take people through, and it's got spots for that for them to be able to jot stuff in there, take notes. Then there's some spots for, okay, kind of breaking it down to say what are the ones I want to work on this next year or quarter. So it's a little bit of planning in it, but it's mostly a spot for them just to house their dreams. And I think that's an awesome start. Most of our people like the electronic versions because then it's with them, at all times. They can access it from their phone or their computer to add things to their list. Some people just like the old school leather bound touch in their hand though too, right?
I have a digital journal that I'm one of those people, I kill my keyboards twice a year. I always have a backup because I'm always pounding on them. But I like the
Mm-hmm.
written journals as well. There's something about writing them down. I think you just remember it better. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I do both. I wanted to ask you, and I'm looking at the chapters. If you had to pick one, what would be the chapter that you would want people, like I did, start with? I started at the very end. What would be the one that you would say, this one's important today?
That's interesting.
I
So
know, put you
as
on the
as
spot.
I'm
Sorry.
yeah, well, that's okay. As I'm looking, the book the book was written for a team leader, business owner, right? Not necessarily for, I think I'll have another one in the future that's more towards just an individual. So a lot of the book is about how to implement this into a team. So, chapters 3, 4, 5, 3 basically through 7 or 8 has a lot to do with the integration for a team. Um, I think the chapters around that, 1, 2, and as you got into 9, I think give a little bit more of the kind of the why does this matter? So I think the why probably matters a lot more than the how, right? And I talked about in the book as well, if the why is strong enough, the how shows itself. So the idea of why does this really matter? I think chapter 2 with embracing a dreams mindset, I think there's a lot of really good stuff in there. And or chapter 9, just the benefits of having this type of a focus.
Started with 9 because, the title, The Unexpected Benefits of Dream Planning, you grabbed me right there. And when you open the book to page 1, and I'm going to read your quick introduction, you say, here we go. This is my go-to phrase when I open meetings. It's my way to frame what's about to happen next as a journey. And I love that. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. And I don't know where I started with it. Here we go. But every time I start a sales meeting or anything else, it's all right. I think it started from trying to get everybody to quiet down, right? Hey, here we go. Let's get started.
Right.
And then I think it's evolved to be, what it is now to say, all right, we're here for a purpose. Let's go.
My friend, and he's a very dear friend of mine and a mentor, and I have a Wednesday podcast with him called The Closers Inner Circle. And he talks about whenever he steps outside, doesn't matter if he's going to put the trash can out, he will say to himself, he straightens himself up and he makes sure that he's respectable to be outdoors, which so many of us don't do these days.
Hmm.
That's just an aside. It's like, put jammies, really? Go get dressed. But he will say, it's showtime, and he means it. It's showtime.
I love that.
Yeah, me
I think it's
too.
great. Little one liners kind of get, and as we mentioned before, words matter. So I think having little things that kind of cause you to get into shape real quick or get into the right mode or mindset, I think those things are great.
Yours and his, I'm combining them. I've got them up on my whiteboard. How has your approach to leadership and dream cultivation evolved since writing the Dream Machine? Are there any big steps, or is this, as you said, it's just been coming along?
I don't know that there's been any one big step. I think finally having the software was probably a really big step. But I think in terms of the evolution of it, uh, when I made the decision to write the book, it forced me to really systemize everything I was doing. I'm definitely somebody who is more natural, shooting from the hip, um, figuring out something that works well, and then just being able to continue to do it. And I haven't necessarily, I don't think one of my gifts is standardizing or creating something that's easy to follow for everybody else. I'm more of the we'll call it natural performer than I am the systemized, a business owner. And so once I made the decision to say, okay, I'm going to put this in a book and I'm going to share this with people, it really forced me to say, okay, what are all the things that matter to this? And through that process, the whole program got better because I realized, oh, doing this creates this, and why do I do this? And sometimes I was just going through and realizing, well, I need to do this, but I didn't necessarily sit down and explain to myself or to others, why are we doing it this way? And so I think just the process of putting it in book form for others to consume was arguably the best thing that happened to the whole program.
How do you balance, and we've been talking about personal dreams and, business dreams. How do you balance the pursuit of personal dreams with the practical demands of running a business?
Oh, that is always the $1 million question. And that is the thing that I still struggle with even at home, with the family dreams of, I'm the dreams guy. So you could imagine it's difficult for me to have to also be the realistic, individual to say, is that right? Is that good stewardship of our money to do this? And so I don't know that there's a perfect way to do it, as much as a little bit of a balancing act. But I think as we have continued every year to be focused on achieving dreams, and sometimes it's more dreams. Hey, we want to have all these things. We're going to do this next year. Sometimes it's less. Hey, we want a little bit more time at home, more family time, depending on what season that we're in. But I do find that uh, the more that I participate myself in doing these dreams, the more driven I become with my businesses. And it's forced, I would say, two different things that happen professionally for me. One, I'm reaching for higher heights with my professional career because it will provide more opportunities for all these dreams that are on my list. The second piece, though, is it's forced me to become a better business owner, a better coach, a better leader, because I also, to achieve all these dreams, I need more time freedom, right? I need more availability to go on that 2-week trip or that 3-week trip. And so it's forced me to really level up my, call it leadership, my ownership game, in those skills, so that I can, quote unquote, live the life of my dreams. And it's gotten to the point, let's say 4 years ago, I was, especially during COVID, we changed, just like everybody else, to working on our laptop. But prior to that, I was in the office during the busy seasons, open and like long hours. And we started having kids around 2016, and so there was already a little friction there of like, I don't think this is sustainable, or I shouldn't say sustainable. I don't think this is the way I want to be as a dad, right, or be as a husband. And so then COVID happened, and I was a slave to my laptop during that. And then over the course of the last 3-4 years, since that, um, we've evolved a whole bunch of stuff. And in that short amount of time, my businesses have gotten to different levels, but it's come from this place of this need internal to say, I have to figure out how I can grow these things, but I also at the same time am committed to working less every single year. So, and I think that, I heard once the idea of the quality of the questions that we ask lead to the quality of our life, and we just have to ask better questions. And that question to me is paramount. How can I improve the results that I'm getting at the same time reducing the hours that I'm working? And so now, as I mentioned, we got an RV. We're leaving next week, and I'll be working from the road for a 2-week trip, and then the next month another 2-week trip, and the next month, so we travel a lot as a family, and I've been able to kind of evolve my businesses because I've had the intention of grow the businesses and decrease the amount of time that I'm working.
Dane, what advice do you have for individuals who struggle to identify or articulate their dreams or even have dreams? I have sadly met people that didn't have any dreams. They just got up, went to work, went back home.
Yeah, I think it's being around people that are having a conversation about dreaming. And I think, that statement, Denise, is so, I hear that all the time. It's sad, but it makes sense to me. It's, we're a product of our environment. And, it's, you could say product of our environment, or we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. I saw a quote just the other day. I'm going to mess it up, but it said something like, I want to be in a group that when I brag about my accomplishments, it's not taken as a brag. It's just part of a conversation. Right. And if it's taken as bragging, I'm in the wrong room. And so the
Ah,
idea,
I love that.
if I want to dream more, I should be around people that are talking about dreaming, because I'm naturally going to start talking about dreaming, right? I'm going to start thinking differently.
I've always been a big dreamer, and I used to get sometimes caught up in it and eventually come out of it and say, well, that didn't make a lick of sense, but it was fun. It
Hmm.
was still my dream. And I'll go back to dreams that I had when I was much younger, and I haven't given up on them. So there's no time frame for dreaming, I
There's
guess is my
none.
point.
There's none. I have ones on mine too that I'm like, I had that on there 10 years ago. Is that still a dream? And sometimes I'll take things off. It's not really a dream anymore. But there's other times where it's that absolutely I would still love to do that. Right. And so it's fun to have an ongoing list, because it's a living thing. It grows, it shrinks, it's constantly evolving.
And, I love learning from my podcast guests. You guys have so much wisdom, and I'm here to learn from you. And I had a lady, well, it was mid-year last year, and she said something that made it to my whiteboard too. And her question or her statement was, does this solve for that? That made so much, that was like I had a brain freeze because I thought, that's brilliant. Does this solve for that? And when I'm dreaming, I will often ask myself, is this going to actually solve anything for me, or does it
Hmm.
need to go lower down the list?
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
it's that leads into the whole, I talk about this when I talk about dreams, that if I have a team that's focused on living their dreams, they're naturally going to be solution finders, because
I
we're
understand.
constantly proposed with the problem. It's a positive problem. It's one that I'm choosing, but how can I achieve this? How can I do this? How can I gain more weight or lose more weight? Or how can I have better relationships? So we're constantly in this state of problem solving, but also in this state of, if I'm solving these problems, I'm also in a belief that a better life is around the corner, a more fulfilled life is around the corner. And I think that's a
Yeah,
really great place to be, that leads to abundance.
absolutely. Dane, we are just about out of time, and I want to thank you so much for being, with us here today. I've been scribbling like crazy. But before I let you go, do you have any final thoughts or advice? And where can our audience connect with you?
Yeah, the last thought I would say, we've covered a lot, but I'd say the last thought would just be, treat this as something that's not an obligation, but it's just fun, right? Give yourself 30 minutes sometime in the next week and just ask some questions of, hey, what are some places I'd want to go? Or what are some things that I've always said I've wanted to do? And, why not now, right? Take some action on something. People can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on Instagram, or also I've got a website that's just DaneEspegard.com. I'm the only Dane Espegard that's out there. So it should be easy to find.
And everybody, today on Your Partner in Success Radio, I had a very insightful conversation with Dane Espegard. He is the author of The Dream Machine, and it's about how to create a workplace culture that not only drives growth, but also helps employees achieve their personal dreams. And we've been talking about both business dreams and personal dreams. I don't see how you can keep them as separate, but some people do manage it. And Dane shared his expertise on implementing a dream system, emphasizing on how connecting employees to their passions increases engagement, retention, and overall happiness. And he highlighted the importance of leaders, excuse me, sharing their own dreams and creating an environment where it's safe to pursue personal goals alongside of professional ones. And we also touched on making dreams a family affair, which I think is so important, and how the dream system helps individuals become better problem solvers. If you are a leader looking to transform your team and unlock their full potential, you absolutely need to connect with Dane. Visit Dane Epsegard. Did I do it that right? Epsegard? .com.
Espegard, very, very close.
Espegard.
90% there.
Nobody can pronounce or spell Griffiths either, so I'm always a little bit embarrassed when I can't pronounce somebody else's last name. But explore his book, The Dream Machine, discover resources for implementing the dream system, and learn how to create a culture where everyone thrives. So go find him and go chase your dreams and inspire your team to do the same. Dane, thank you so much. And you mentioned that you may be doing another book. When that is ready, can you contact me and we'll get you back on the show?
Absolutely. I would love that. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Well, listen, everybody, go find him and have a terrific day. Live your dreams.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.